So now I'd like to turn to Jamie Bothwell for Jamie's talking about the passenger car underbody detail. And this is air conditioning, right, Jamie?
Tonight, I was thinking about this. It's sort of the holy grail is the air conditioning, because I'm always chasing after air conditioning. And I'll highlight some more of this. And again, I know I'm supposed to be 15 minutes, but maybe it's good that if we've got a little time, because this might take just a little bit longer than 15 minutes. And trust me, I'm not hitting all the, I'm only hitting the high points. For those of you who are building along on the baggage car build, obviously a baggage car would never have had any air conditioning. But again, never say never. Here is a wooden car with air conditioner, right? I happen to, you guys are benefiting from the fact that I was out at Strasburg Railroad and the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania last Friday. And so I took some pictures of various things that would help me in my presentation. But again, I found this one to be interesting. You'll notice it's a wooden car with a truss rod, and right behind the truss rod is an air conditioner. So they do exist. You could air condition your wood cars if you really wanted to. Now, before I go along, let me just say something I learned. This is one of the things I learned, is that I was looking at one of these wooden cars, and they were talking about it being one of the innovations of this car to make it new and modern back in the 1890s was it had a men's room on one end of the car and a woman's room on the other end of the car. And so I said to the guy, well, I would imagine after people use the restroom, they'd probably want to wash their hands, but I don't see any kind of water tank under the car. And he said, oh yeah, the water tanks are inside, like up in the roof. So on your wooden cars that had restroom facilities, the water tanks were not considered underframe detail. They would be more like interior detail. So again, you're on your own on that one, but that would be why you're not seeing any water tanks under a wood car of that era. So they had several cars of the, say, 1890s era that were all similar. The guy told me they had water tanks up in the clustery roof. So there you go. Okay, so one of the first types of air conditioning was ice. Apparently, some of the ideas for ice air conditioning went back to the 1860s or so. But basically, I had these ice boxes under the car, and they filled them up with giant blocks of ice. And then as the ice melted, it would make cold air, and they'd have fans that would circulate the air around the car. These are Pullman ice boxes. You can see there's kind of like two small ones and one big one. And again, depending on the car, they could have had a variety of sizes, but the ice boxes are generally easy to spot. They've got these very large, sturdy latching systems on them. The hinge, they tend to be hinged up, and they've got handles on there to open them up. But that big door latch right there is sort of a common drill on the Pullman ice chest there. Okay. This is the S-scale version of the Pullman ice chest from BTS. This is what they call the large one, and that's what they call the small one. So again, you can see a little different from what the real ones look like, but anyway, that's what we got. So they list this as an ice control box, so some sort of way to control the amount of air that was coming off of the cool ice that they would then cool the car with. Okay. This is a Pennsylvania Railroad P70. This big box under here is the ice box. And again, you can see very heavy duty latches to keep the heavy ice inside the box. Okay, so railroads that favored ice air conditioning. The Pennsylvania Railroad was probably the railroad that was the biggest user of ice air conditioning. Pullman pool cars, a lot of Pullman pool cars also had ice air conditioning. I did notice a few Wabash cars. Ice air conditioning was primarily the heavyweight cars. You weren't going to see lightweight cars with ice air conditioning. In looking through my references, I didn't see any lightweight cars that had ice air conditioning. Now, again, Pennsylvania Railroad used these on their Pullman cars, but also on their own, like that P70 that I just showed you. I can't speak to a lot of the other railroads out there as to who used ice in their coaches or diners. But I know the Pennsylvania Railroad used it in both their Pullman cars and their coaches. So the railroad owned cars. Okay. The next type of air conditioning system is a steam ejector air conditioning. And again, this one, I'm showing you the pre-size, again, the S-scale model of this. This is a pretty good example of this thing. This is the, oh, there was a name for this and I forget what it was. Anyway, this piece that you're showing here right now, obviously is upside down. You would turn it over to glue it to the bottom of the car. This sort of a trapezoidal shaped lump, these two trapezoidal shaped lumps sticking out the bottom. You're not trying to affix it right here to the car. You turn it over and it's affixed down here. So the steam ejector air conditioning system, let me just see. Now they list this as another one. I can't verify that, but again, they call that a steam ejector air conditioner also. Railroads that favored the Santa Fe by far and away owned steam ejector air conditioning. I speculated on this and I read someplace that they agree with me. I don't really know why this makes a difference, but because the Santa Fe might have left Chicago on a 70-degree day, gone through Albuquerque and it would have been -10 or whatever, and then got to Los Angeles and it would be 80 degrees. That variance, for some reason, they like the steam run air conditioning. And oh, what was I going to say? Shoot. But again, I don't know why it would make any difference for them, but for whatever reason, they preferred it. The Erie also had some cars, as well as the Frisco and the Milwaukee Road both had some steam ejector air conditioning. Now, the way that you use steam to make air conditioning is way beyond the topic to be discussed here. Okay, so that's, if you want to pursue that, it's out there. The other thing I would tell you is, again, the general topic here is underframe details. But what I've recently learned about steam ejector air conditioning, at least in the heavyweight cars of the Santa Fe, is that it also required some material on the roof. There were hatches on the roof that went with the steam ejector air conditioning. And so if you're modeling Santa Fe heavyweights or other heavyweights that had steam ejector air conditioning, you might want to look into that. The guys at the Santa Fe Historical Society were very helpful to me. They sent me a link to an article and then the copy of another article that I could learn about this stuff. So I'm currently undergoing a project where I'm trying to include steam ejector air conditioning on a heavyweight Pullman car. So that was very helpful for me. Now, interestingly enough, some of this goes into, again, I've spoken several times about the interrelation between these different things. The Erie had some cars that they had steam ejector air conditioning on. But when the Pullman cars got sold off to the railroads in 1948, some of those Erie cars ended up on the New York Central. So the New York Central actually had a few cars that had steam ejector air conditioning because they got them from another railroad in the divestiture of the Pullman system. So, again, none of this is ever easy or standalone. It's all interconnected. But if you're modeling the Santa Fe, you really want to know about steam ejector air conditioning. Now, I went through this afternoon, I looked at my pictures. I have a book about Santa Fe lightweight cars, and I couldn't see any roof hatches that would, that nothing stood out in any of the photographs as a similar roof hatch to a lightweight car. So maybe if you have a model of lightweights, you're safe. I don't know. Okay. Pullman's favorite air conditioner in the pre-war years and in the heavyweight years was what we call the electromechanical heavyweight air conditioning. Okay. I measured these things on 4 different cars in 3 different states to try and get every last detail. I'd come back and I'd say, oh, wait, I need to know how big this thing is. And I have to go find another one. Pro level detail on this, the end of this little squirrel cage thing is also a screen. Okay. This protects a belt and the end of it is a screen. So a lot of times guys would make these out of like a round disc, but if you really want to do, all right. And the other pro level detail is this gadget over here. This is a rock screen. So basically what it is angle irons. And, of course there'd be a matching one on the inside. And then there's this piece of screening that keeps rocks from banging into the air conditioner. This was sort of a thing with cars that had a pre-cooler and what was it? a brine system. For some reason, when they took off the brine system, they put on the rock screens. Some of them just never had that, never had the rock screens. Okay. All right, so here is the pre-sized model of that. Again, this is what you get in S scale. This one is, this little gadget in the back is a belt sort of thing that drives the air conditioner. There are apparently two types of these things. You can see sort of the diagram of the setup. This is what I'm going to say is the rarer type, because I've crawled under a few Pullman cars in my day and I've never seen one of these. Okay. The other ones I've seen all have this little box that runs off of a universal thing off the truck. And I probably should have included a picture, but I can't find one. I'm having some issues with my storage of pictures. I've got some that are here, there, and everywhere else. So anyway, I found this slide of a dynamotor. If you'll notice, it says 1939, 1940. So this would be the beginning of the lightweight era. I like this because you can see here's that curved box, and you'll also see that they've got the same curved fan intakes. So those two things are designed to fit up with the skirting of the car. And again, I showed you a box, one of these boxes like this back in the battery part. But again, even into, say, the 1960s, those curved boxes and these curved fans remained in place, even though they'd taken off the skirting from the car. Now, again, in the 1939 to 1940 era, Pullman called this the dynamotor system, but later it would appear that they called it electromechanical pre-war. Okay, so there's electromechanical heavyweight, there's electromechanical pre-war. I have seen cars where the air conditioning system, even a lightweight car, the air conditioner itself looked pretty much like this. They just hid it behind a skirt. So, but that would be, this looks like a slightly different system if they're to be believed. But I think that drawing is reasonably accurate. Okay, so here's those curved intakes again. So you can see even with the side skirting removed, they were still there. Here's a picture of them on a car. Sorry, it was really small, so when I made it bigger, it got all blurry. Okay, so electromechanical post-war. Now, if you look at the references I have, don't make a whole lot of distinguishing characteristics between various companies. And this is where things get really hazy, because you got to understand, first of all, if the car is still running on a tourist railroad or something, the most likely system they've rebuilt is the air conditioner, because they've gotten better air conditioners or bigger air conditioners or whatever. So, you go and find some car on a tourist railroad and you say, oh, here's the air conditioner. And it's like, maybe, maybe not. Now, these were from the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania on one of my trips, maybe not the one I took last Friday, but these cars are listed as having electromechanical post-war air conditioning systems. So I'm trusting that this is at least a reasonable facsimile of what it is. Now, here's the other problem. What goes in here? Did those things, because if you look, I think on the next picture, there's one that's got sort of a cover on it. And I've also seen them where the whole thing is a screening kind of like this. And, you're looking at like the dark, murky depths in photographs under these cars, trying to figure out what's what. And the pictures don't match the drawings, and the drawings don't match the models. And it's like I said, it's the holy grail. I'm continually chasing it. See, so here's one this one is tower view at the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania. You can see, again, what looks like that same sort of system inside, but it's enclosed in more of a chicken wire kind of thing than this one that had the sort of door on it, right? So, did the railroad do this? Did Pullman do this? Are these a different system? Good question, right? And, that first one had this kind of an opening on both ends. This one only has it on one end. It's got the chicken wire around it. So it looks like that's actual railroad, but you never know because it's an air conditioner and who knows what they might have changed. Okay, now the tower view, again, one of the other systems that gets listed in Pullman literature is something called the electromechanical amplidyne. And that's what I've typed this one in as, because that's what they claim this car to have. Now, if that makes any difference in this part of the system, I don't know. But what it means it has is an amplidyne. All right. And the amplidyne was sort of like a constant voltage thing. If the generator off the wheel was making too much voltage, it would step it down so it didn't like burn out the air conditioner. But if it were not producing enough electricity, then it would sort of up the voltage, almost like a battery, I guess. Again, I don't completely understand the operation of these gadgets, but it looks a lot like a generator. It's about the size of a generator, except it has no shaft out of either end of it. And then the generators were generally mounted on center of the car. This thing is off to the side. So there's an Amplenine. Okay, so the Waukesha ice engine. We talked a little bit about Waukesha things when we were dealing with the electrical systems. Again, my records don't indicate any cars that had Waukesha generators without having the electrical, without having the Waukesha air conditioning system. But there were cars that had the Waukesha ice engine without having the generator. So again, I was looking for a decent picture of one, and I can't find one anywhere. So there's the ice engine. Here again is our S-scale version of this in cast resin. It's a 3-piece deal, and they'll tell you what it is. You got the ice engine here. This is a subcooler, and then this is a 3-bottle propane cylinder. Okay, so depending on the car you're looking at, they might have had a 4-bottle propane cylinder, but again, you'd have to check on whichever car that you're trying to model. So railroads that favored the Waukesha system were Illinois Central, Gulf Mobile, Ohio, Union Pacific. Union Pacific might have had the biggest variety of air conditioning systems. They used electromechanical. They used the heavyweights. They used that one, but they had some Waukesha 2 engine. They had some Waukesha 1 engine. So they had sort of a vast variety of these things. But I also found some, again, they weren't, I would say Illinois Central probably had the most in terms of percentage. Union Pacific also had some, and I saw some on Great Northern. Of course, Chicago Northwestern shared some, they ran in and out with the Union Pacific into Chicago. So they also had some cars with Waukesha systems.